We are actually in the midst of MIDI 413 course, which
So
has.
yesterday I tried a lot, but I think there was network issue or what. Since 1 hour I have tried, but was not able to join.
Okay, okay, okay. Uh-huh, uh-huh. But at Chandigarh, I had some recordings of this. So yesterday we
Okay.
discussed the some first two parts of block three, which is counseling and tutoring. So we discussed what are the why counseling is needed, where when counseling is needed, who requires counseling. So we all know it is the typical or the specific kind of consultations where we describe the distance learners is having certain peculiar characteristics. And all those makes a very fit case for the counseling services as a student support service. And we also discussed what is difference between counseling and tutoring. So in fact, when we went into the details, we didn't find much distinction or difference, except that counseling is basically a comprehensive kind of role which the counselor performs, whereby tutoring is a role which is very, very specific to the contents and the subject matter of the course in which one is enrolled. So, counseling is something where the counselor will face all sorts of questions, all sorts of queries, all sorts of issues of the learner, and try his or her best to not only answer to them, but also try to take them up with the system so as to bring about some resolution to the issues. So those may vary from study material, from the submission of assignments, from arrangement of classes, from submission of terminal examination form, then taking up the examinations, the declaration of results, and if one is continuing the study beyond first year, like second year or third year in graduate degree programs, then there may be issues like issuance of grade card and declaration of result. So, in a nutshell, the role of counselor is quite comprehensive and involves almost all kinds of expectations which are there with the learners from the system. So in a way, we can say that learner feels that counselor is something or someone who has answer to all his problems, solution, resolution to all his issues. Counselors are also trained in such a way that they do their best to entertain, to give very appropriate response to the learners' issues and problems. But at the same time, there may be certain issues which the counselors do not have control over. So then all those are referred to the uh, study center coordinator or to the regional center where regional director and his associates work. Sometimes it is also referred to the headquarter. What was more important with the counselor was that what are the qualities that a counselor must have. So yesterday we discussed that the counselor is very, very important person. He should have acceptance. He should have ability to give proper response. Then he should have empathy. Then he should be a good listener. He should be well informed. So if three, four traits are categorically mentioned, then sense of acceptance, ability to respond, empathical attitude, and above all, that is the listening. So, if a counselor does have all these traits and qualities, so then he can become a very good counselor. Just to mention here that Indira Gandhi National Open University has a very, very extensive and elaborate counselors orientation, or we may call it training programs, whereby counselors are trained, refreshed, and they are updated within certain intervals as and when program structure is changed of a particular program. Then the concerned counselors are briefed and they are invited to headquarter or they invited to regional center, and then the sessions are held whereby they are updated. Now, if we take a brief recapitulation at the role and the characteristics of tutor, I mean, what is tutoring? So, counseling, I think both denotes very clearly that it is not mm, teaching per se. So, counseling may have, academic. There is academic counseling, there is administrative counseling, there is a support counseling. So same is with tutoring. In tutoring, actually, what goes, which is different from the counselor, is that the tutor confines his or her role to the academic matters. So the tutor will strictly deal with the contents of the course, the subject matter, and then try to discuss the major the focal points and give discussions and response. And the tutor is also equally, or the tutoring is also equally in an environment where the tutor is quite responsive, ready to accept, and then he also listens very carefully, attends the students. But the basic difference is that where counselor has a larger role means that along with academic counseling, that means dealing with this study material, subject matter, and various other issues that are related to the subject matter or the syllabus. Uh, the tutor strictly deals with the issues that are there with the uh, contents of the course or the subject matter. And there is a very deep implications on the counselors and the tutors role, or the counseling and tutoring makes very important impact on the overall open and distance learning system, because if your counseling structure is strengthened, is counselors may be tutor also. So I'm not saying the counselor is typically a very uh, separate person from tutor. Usually, the counselors are also the tutors. So, we may look at the tutor's role or the counselor's role in terms of the sort of queries that there are with the learners in the open distance learning. So, we can very simply gauge that this counseling and tutoring has very important role, because only these two are the elements which can sustain the learners in the open and distance learning system. So I would say that the role of the tutor is very, very important. Counselor's role is equally important, because if they are not performing their role properly, definitely open and distance learning system will not function, will not be able to reach or serve the learners as per their expectations. Now we move on to the unit 3, which is media and technology in counseling and tutoring. I think all of us understand the importance of media and technology in the field of open and distance learning. So, if we talk about the counseling, about the tutoring, about the learner support services, then I think we cannot undermine the role of media and technology in this particular area as well. All of us know that the counseling and tutoring are two very important activities which are the sole activities which deals with the learners academic and other issues. That means if a learner is enrolled in IGNOS program, he or she naturally expects that there will be teacher, there will be classes, and there will be resolution to his or her issues, problems, and queries. So that role is performed by the counselors and the tutor. So that means tutoring and counseling are the I should say, the backbone of the open and distance learning system. If those are effective, definitely the learners will be retained and the system will progress and go move ahead. If these are absent or not functioning properly, definitely the learners will be demotivated. They will not continue with the re-registration for second year or third year, and likewise there can be a lot of dropout issue in there. So now we come to the media and technology. We will assess what is the role of media and technology in counseling and tutoring. All of us know that there are various types of mediums, or there is a various type of media which is there in the open and distance learning system. Be it radio, be it television, be it the social media, or be it the internet mediated services, anything. So all those are very important part of the student support systems, in particularly with regard to counseling and tutoring. First of all, it is very important to know that what are the basic assumptions about the counseling. What is counseling? Why counseling? The prime question is, what is counseling? Counseling is a kind of two-way. It's a process of two-way communication which happens between the learner and the counselor. So that means if it is a classroom counseling, definitely they both of them are in face-to-face mode. If they are not in the face-to-face mode, then how can they become part of the same process, whereby the counselor will be on one end and the learners will be on the other end. So there comes the role for the media. So media works as a catalyst and helps the two-way process of counseling to happen between the learner and the counselor. Uh, this is very interesting. This is quite interesting. I'm speaking to all of you. At the same time, I'm speaking each one of you. So you see, all of you may not be perceptive or may not be very happy with this particular mode of interaction. That means they may not like the online mode of counseling. But at the same time, some of you might find it very, very convenient, very, very at ease, because there are certain constraints with all of you. Might be busy with other assignments, so you find it quite easy. So then, some people like it, some may not be that at ease with this kind of system. So these are basic assumptions. It's basically facilitation or the two-way communication between the learner and the counselor or this teacher, and at the same time it is focused on one particular individual. At the same time, it is focused on the entire group. At the same time, it is the system is perhaps initiated or appreciated by certain learners and may not be appreciated by all the learners. So those are things. Now we will see what are the basic characteristics of counseling and vis-a-vis the role or intervention of the ICT or information communication technologies. That means the role of media and technology. First of all of us know that counseling is learner-centric. Why do we have counseling? For a very simple reason that it is learner-centric, and learner is very important in ODL. That is the identity of the ODL system, that it is learner-centric. So that means the counseling service is also, or rather I should say, always learner-centric. It is always focused at the learner. So if the learner is not at ease with certain mode of counseling medium, then it can be changed, it can be replaced depending upon the availability of the resources with the host institution or the host or the organizer. And then, in many situations, the learner, when he contact the counselor, you know, then he not only contact the counselor for the academic matters, but also for the non-academic matters. I just now told you with regard to the unit 1, where I was talking about the qualities, the traits of the counselor. I told you that his role is different from the tutor. While tutor restricts his or her role to the academic part of the course contents, the counselor's role moves beyond that also. That means he has to attend the academic queries. At the same time, he or she has also to attend the non-academic queries. Ria, welcome. Uh, then, as I have mentioned you, what is counseling? Counseling is something when you give a patient hearing to the learner. That means you listen to the learner, his or her problems, and so forth. Then a very important role the counselor or the counseling deals with, that is to you know critically examine the learner's problems and then try to resolve them to the best of his or her own abilities. Sometimes what happens, I mean, now it is happening quite frequently, so maybe I will not use the word sometimes. But if I may say that in the recent times, the counseling, which was previously happening in face-to-face mode, 100% at the study centers or the regional center or the learner support centers, now has been replaced by the interactive mode. That means either you are using radio, some are using television, and I think you can very well see that we are using the internet mediated medium. So we are on a particular platform, and then we are using the services of this particular platform, which is facilitated by the internet, and we are able to interact. So that means there can be counseling, can be face-to-face counseling, can be through media. Counseling can be through social media. It can be through radio. It can be through television. Like we have IRCs. I think you have learned about IRCs, interactive radio sessions. Those are happening every day from the Gyanwani stations, which IGNOU has established across the country. And there are Darshan sessions, which are the television channel session. And these are 24 hours. This Gyan Darshan is 24-hour channel. And much part of the broadcast on this particular channel is concerned related to the IGNOU programs. So if you just listen to Gyanwani channel, it is on the FM channel, Delhi, Bhopal, many stations. I think there were about 32 active stations. So right now I don't have an idea how many are actually working, but it's a good number, and you can listen to any stations of Gyanwani channel on shortwave frequency. Sorry, on FM channel, not on shortwave, on FM channel. So similarly, there is a compulsory channel, and it is mandatory for all the the cable networks and the television service providers to carry the Gyan Darshan channel, which is educational channel of India. This channel belongs to the Ministry of Education, but it has been assigned to IGNOU to coordinate. So a larger chunk of the programs, which is 24-hour broadcast, the larger chunk of the programs pertains to the IGNOU academic programs. You can listen, you can have a schedule, and you can even supplement your study with the help of this particular channel. Now let us move a bit to the tutoring service. What is tutoring service? As I mentioned you, learner counseling is a different activity, very exhaustive, comprehensive activity. But the tutoring is an activity which restricts itself to the course material or the contents of the course. That is one. Secondly, in tutoring, the teacher, the tutor will address the class and discuss the issue. And thirdly, the teacher will issue or address the issues that are there with the learners with regard to the academic matters. So, I think we can very categorically distinguish between the counseling and the tutoring only on one basis, that is that the counseling is comprehensive and involves the issues. Those are academic and non-academic both. But strictly speaking, tutoring involves the focused on the issues. Those are purely subject matter or the content matters. So that is very clear there. If we go to a bit further, then we find that there are lot of forms of the counseling. So counseling, as I just now mentioned, used to happen face-to-face mode. Uh, that means the students, learners used to come to the study center and they will be interacting with the counselor over there, and then they will be discussing the academic matters and the non-academic matters also. We also know the counseling is a group activity as well as individual activity. Means while it is a classroom-like activity, then it is a group. But when it is through media, then because I have already said to you, like there's a quote about radio. Radio is for one and all. So similarly, other mediums also have their traits, peculiarities. While they address to all, they are also focused to one. So that is the tendency of the medium or the media, that everyone who is attached to media feels that it is being addressed only to me. So it is like that. Then we also know that there's a counseling through telephone, there's a counseling through mobile phone. Already I have said there is counseling through radio, counseling through television, then counseling through letter, through correspondence, video cassettes. Lot of conventional methods were there, but I have told you IRC and teleconferencing. These are two important innovations in the counseling process, where the media and technology plays a greater role. But now there is interactive radio counseling, there is interactive television counseling, which is the Gyan Darshan. Now we also have virtual counseling. We have counseling through internet mediated platforms, just like the one which we are doing right now. So there are several forms of counseling, several modes of counseling which are taking place in the system. Uh, Now there's a question whether the learners are able to learn through the counseling where media has an active role. Well, today the learner is more autonomous, is technology savvy. So most of our learners today are interested in learning through the media and the technology, which has greater impact on the learning. Because not only that it saves the time, but it also saves rid the learners from the constraints of sticking to the classroom schedule, moving to the classroom, and also going for one particular lecture or two particular lectures. But if one is at home, and if the media has the lectures in a digitized form or in a recorded form, then it can be made available and the learners can access them at his or her own convenience. That means it is saving time, it is avoiding long traveling, it is also avoiding the frequent traveling. At the same time, it also helps the learners to plan the uh, interaction or the learning as per the availability, as per the schedules or the time available with him or her. some forms of media which we call the broadcasting media. I think you will understand what is broadcasting media. Broadcasting media is primarily conventionally referred to the radio, but we must also understand and know that television is also telecasting is also broadcasting. So if it is interactive media which is facilitating the counseling, it is also broadcasting media. And if there is interactive teleconferencing sessions, those are TCs, where the experts are sitting in some studios, for example, Indira Gandhi National Open University studio at Maidangadi, and then learners are sparsed at different places in the country, so they both of them can interact. So it is the interactive means both can interact by using media, which is primarily an extension of the counseling service of support service. So we have telephone counseling. We used to have lot of interaction, but these days, of course, it is there. But now we are using more the mobile phones instead of telephone. So this is a shift which has taken place recently. So now perhaps we can say mobile interaction. Then there is a video. I have already told you that there is one-way video broadcast, or there is a two-way video interaction, which is called the teleconferencing, where there are experts at one end and the learners are at the other end, and then the dialogue happens. There's a presentation which is made by the expert, and there are questions which are raised by the learners, and those questions are answered. So it is an interactive television broadcast, and a lot of members which are contributing to this Gyan Darshan channel, as I mentioned to you, like IGNO, UGC, IMA, All India Management Association, NCERT, that is National Council of Education Research and Technology, then NEPA, National Institute of Education and Public Administration. Similarly, quite a good contribution is made by NIOS, that is National Institute of Open Schooling, previously known as National Open School, NOS, and now some IITs are also contributing to this corpus of Gyan Darshan, which is 24-hour channel coordinated by IGNO, but it belongs to the Ministry of Education, Government of India. So I just now mentioned to you that IIT Delhi has also been contributing quite a lot in this particular Gyan Darshan broadcast. So all these are the contributors to the interactive television counseling. So radio counseling is very important. I have already mentioned to you that with the collaboration of All India Radio, IGNO has established centers at Ahmedabad, Bhopal, Bangalore, Patna, Jaipur, Kolkata, Hyderabad, Mumbai, and Delhi. And the Delhi station of Gyanwani is on the FM channel, and it broadcasts every day for 14 to 18 hours, and almost for 4 hours there is live broadcast. Sometimes it may be more, depending upon the availability of resources and the programs which are presented by the faculty of IGNO. So I think one would be a little really happy to know that such an extensive network of interactive counseling through radio and television works. What we are trying to discuss here, I'm not telling you this is there. I'm telling you this to you as distance learner, so that when you discuss about the when as a master's degree holder, you explain what is interactive video counseling, what is teleconferencing, what is the role of media and technology, and the extent to which the media and technology are being utilized for the counseling services of, and that includes tutoring as well of the open and distance learning. students. Similarly, I think you will appreciate there was a good service which has not been in use anymore, but in several institutions this is being utilized. It is IVRS system, so interactive voice response system. So we all know it is there now for pretty long time with the organizations. The IVRS has worked for many years. Sometimes you call to some office, to some institution, and then you are asked to punch a certain digit, and after punching a certain digit you again get some response. Then you are advised to punch some other key or number, and then there will be another response, another statement. So that is interactive voice response system, IVR. So that was there with the IGNO and certain other institutions. But presently, I think this service is there, but might not be used because today we have a lot of other media which are very quick. Today we have mobile phones, and the WhatsApp service is very fast. We have SMS service also for interaction. There will be SMS from the learner, or sometime even the pager system worked very well. Finally, we know that the SM system, which is a short messaging system, is also very important. It worked. It was quite an effective medium of interaction for some time. Today, we have moved to web-supported platform in counseling, and web-supported counseling are like online discussion. So maybe I need not to emphasize because we are already using, and we are right now working on this particular mode. So there are online discussions which are facilitated by the World Wide Network or World Wide Web. So it is www World Wide Web. So you can connect to a particular IP address from anywhere around the globe. Then we have another interactive service which is email service. You know, email. All the learners are required to have their emails, and their emails and telephone numbers are registered with the university. So if there is any change in the system, any information about the course, about the submission of various forms, that is submission of assignments, or like convocation information is there, it is immediately sent to the learners through SMS service as well as email. Besides, it is also now being sent on the WhatsApp of the learners. So all the learners are advised in to have their active email and their active telephone mobile number, and also they should be there on the WhatsApp, because not only these makes the communication easier to the senders, but they are very fast mode of receiving the information from the university. Besides, the information is also very precise, very compact, and also updated, most updated, because you can send such messages, such information any time of the day or any time of the night. So you might not be feeling surprised if in the mid of the night you have a message from IGNO, because there is a system which is working 24 hours at our headquarters, and they are passing on the information. So certain dedicated staff is there. It keeps on working in shifts and try to address, send replies to the learners on their emails, on their mobile phones through SMS, and also on their WhatsApp ID or WhatsApp phone address or WhatsApp number. So you can see then there's a wiki also. So this is also one platform where you can receive lot of information. So these are the different modes of counseling. So now we have the chat boxes. So these there are a lot of chat boxes, chat platforms I will not name them because all of you are using them already. So the advantage of these platform is that they don't have the video, but they have instant messaging. So that means it is very active, and you can send the message. So there are they also have privacy, and they also have a very secret or coded methodology which makes the messaging or the messages very safe. So a lot of providers are there, like Messenger, Messenger, Pigeon, ACAOL, Instant Messenger, and like Skype, Naver, ICQ, and Yahoo, etc. are there all day. So all these are instant messaging platforms. So now there is a text chat. So internet also facilitates the text chat. Now there are different forums which have been created. Those are internet forums. So you can join them, and similarly we have podcasting service which is equally important. And if we look at the extensive role of the media and technology, then we can say as of now, particularly in the last 2 3 years, the scenario has completely changed. And today, we have to admit that most of the counseling and most of the tutoring, most of the interaction is being done by the media and technology, be it a mobile phone, be it the WhatsApp or chat boxes, chat platforms, or through SMS. It is facilitated by the media and technology, and specifically the online classes are being held just on the by the assistance that is provided by the internet platforms. So with this, I think we have here enough idea about the role of technology, because technology is one thing we have to remember, that media and technology are just the facilitators or the catalysts. They are not there. The main objective is not to simply look at the media and technology. The real crux is to look at what we achieve, what we receive, where is the significance of this media and technology. It is definitely a catalytic role that is played by the media and technology. It only helps, but the basic effort has to be made by the teacher and the learner. Because if those are not at the you know originating end, and at the same time at the receiving end, I think the system has no value. System is pertinent, system is relevant only when the learner and the teachers are available at the two ends. So primarily and essentially one has to remember that media is just a catalyst, just an instrument. It is not the objective. It is a means. Most often we fail to distinguish between the means and the achievement. So means is there to facilitate, to just help you out, to make the process faster, to execute it more accurately, uniformly. But this is not end of the story. End of the story is whether we are really able to serve the learner. So you, as a learner, you have to understand. Maybe you can point out that it has really worked well, or it has not performed its role, or it has not really contributed significantly, then justify that part. So we come to another very important discussion on organizing counseling and tutoring services. So this is purely a discussion which is part of the organizational roles and responsibilities. How to plan counseling and tutoring service, what should go into the planning, whether they are the counseling and Tutoring is possible through the open and distance learning system. So you have to see uh, the necessity of these services in the system and in the organization, and then see the characteristics of the learners, expectations of the learners, and in accordance with all those characteristics of learners and the circumstances, with the shortcomings of the system, with the advantages of the system, you have to plan the uh, counseling and the tutoring services, because then there are a lot of consideration. You see, particularly in the last 2 3 years, the scenario has totally changed, because we have the study material which was launched in 2018, 2018. So we can see that at that particular point of time, there was still a greater emphasis on the self-learning material, or the contents of the matters which would be transacted in the counseling sessions through face-to-face mode. But within the last 2 3 years, there is a paradigmic shift. I think we are using the word paradigm shift. Somewhere in the assignments, I recall that there was a question: what is paradigm shift, or what is the paradigm shift in the education, particularly open distance education, in the last 1 decade? So, if we look at the whole scenario from that perspective, we can see there is a paradigmatic shift in the student support services, including counseling and tutoring in the past 2 3 years. There was a total focus on the counseling in the face-to-face mode previously. Today, the shift has been totally uh, uh, changed to the online counseling. So now the major counseling part is done by online counseling. Very few programs are there which have the necessity or the need to counsel or provide counseling services through face-to-face mode. I don't know how many programs are of that nature, and if at all it is happening or not. But I am very sure that the online mode has been a dominating platform, dominating form of counseling and tutoring which is taking place today. So, dear learners, if we take into consideration the organizational or organization's role and responsibility, and the approach to the counseling services, you see, we know that the counseling services are and the tutoring services are regularly organized by the uh, institutions, academic institutions. Whether those academic institutions are regular mode or dual mode, that means in like Delhi University School of Open Learning, Directorate of Correspondence courses of many universities like Punjab University, Himachal University, and so Jammu University, and the Centers for Correspondence Education (CCEs). All these actually are, providing the counseling and tutoring services by their own arrangements, by their own systems that they have. I'll take a small break and attend a call. There is an important call. Sorry, there was an interruption. Anyway, so what we are doing today is we are providing the counseling services, the organizations, the institutions are providing counseling services through their efforts through their different available resources. Uh, they are using multimedia instruction system. They are using contact programs, and also they are using various other methods of counseling. And they're using the radio services quite a lot. They're using the television services and so forth. So, if we look at the overall structure of the universities which are organizing the counseling services, there are two types of counseling services. The two types of universities which are like uh, state open universities and the dual mode universities. So I already told you that IGNO is Open University. Similarly, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar Open University, Hyderabad. Uh, Yashwantrao Chavan Open University, Nashik. Then there are state open universities at UP State, Rajshri, Purushottam Last, and then Open University in Uttar Pradesh. There are many other universities in different states. So today, I think if I am not wrong, then there are 14 state open universities which are working in the country. All those are providing counseling services. They are providing tutoring services in the open university system. So if we look at the tutoring and counseling services in the distance learning institutions, that means in the open universities and the dual mode universities, then we come across that there is a slight difference. There is a slight, not slight, very significant difference between the approach of these two types of institutions. We know that tutoring services and counseling services are happening in both the universities, those belonging to the open university system, the dual mode university system. That means the universities which are conventional universities, but at the same time they are also offering the distance education programs. So, if we take a look of the different universities, we can conclude that while the open and distance education universities are primarily working for the learners and they are organizing various types of counseling and tutoring uh, services. The emphasis on the dual mode universities is primarily based on the PCPs, personal contact programs, which are organized for 2 to 3 weeks at headquarters or maybe in the fields also. But then there is hardly any regional network of the dual mode universities. They have only their headquarter, their main center where university is located, and then occasionally they organize PCPs. And besides that, they just have correspondence through letters, and their assignment system is also such that they ask the learners to write either term paper or a project report or something like it, which is evaluated. But if you look at the open universities, state open universities, then you can see that they have very extensive network of counseling and tutoring. They are very well planned activity. They lay great emphasis on the counseling, and it happens in number of ways. If we look at the IGNO case, it is available in face-to-face mode. It is available in telecounseling mode. Telecounseling means when you are using television or remote facility to execute the counseling like Gyan Darshan and Gyanavani. Then there is a phone in radio counseling. This is very important, as I mentioned to you. Our Gyanavani channels provide IRCs, interactive radio counseling. And this IRC or the interactive radio counseling is facilitated by uh, by by the radio stations which are exclusively established for the purpose of IGNO's academic programs. So there is a facility available with these centers, which is the phone-in radio counseling. So phone-in radio counseling means the learners can, when they can go through the schedules of the broadcast, and once they find that their choiced program is being taken up at a particular time, and interestingly, all the schools of studies at the headquarters have the data of the learners, and there is a communication to all the learners from the schools, from the regional center, that this particular group of learners will be focused, or these particular programs will be included in this on this particular day in their broadcasts. So in the various broadcasts, the learners can listen to a topic which specifically relating to their course contents, and they can listen to it, and there's a facility to make a phone in call, so they can put their queries, speak directly to the resource person in the studios of Indira Gandhi National Open University at the headquarters, or at the region center, at the radio stations, can run in the centers which are on other places, and can get the response from the expert. The expert will reply to their queries. On many occasions, we have received such queries, and those queries can vary from academic matters to the administrative matters also, but nevertheless, the service is there, which is phone in radio counseling. Then there is a science practical sessions which are also held for the science programs. These sessions are held, and region center make sure that the necessary science practicals are carried out in the laboratories of the colleges, or the universities, where there are standard labs, and there are qualified faculties to guide the learners for doing the practicals. So a lot is there with regard to the IGNO methodology of organizing the counseling services, where there's a lot of flexi learning. So that means the students can send their text chats to the coordinator of the particular program, and then they can receive the response from those particular issues. So, but if you look at the dual mode industry, as I mentioned to you, their main emphasis on PCPs. So, in PCPs, there is a mandatory attendance of about 75%. Whereas I must, put to your knowledge that in the counseling sessions of Indira Gandhi National University, such restriction condition is relaxed, and so the basic question is how to plan the counseling and tutorial sessions. This is very important. I think one major consideration to plan the counseling and tutorial sessions is to look at the academic calendar of the university. So what we have to keep in mind that there are examination schedules, there are submission of assignments. So it is imperative that much of the uh, counseling and tutoring services are organized in such a manner that they help the learner to prepare the assignments, and also at the second phase they should prepare the learner for taking the terminal examinations. So that means from the commencement of the academic session of the learners, in the first 2 to 3 months, much of the academic counseling for a particular semester takes place, so that the learners can take benefit of the counseling and the tutoring, and actually prepare the assignments and also prepare for the term examinations of a particular semester. So that would mean that organizing the counseling sessions and the tutoring sessions needs to be in consonance with the academic calendars of the universities or the academic institutions. Secondly, it is also important, even though it may not, it is not part of the discussion in the study material. It has to be kept in mind that uh, counseling and tutoring services must be organized in such a manner that they do not directly interfere with the assignments which are there previously with the learners. Assignments not related to the courses, but say for example, a large number of learners in the open and distance learning system comes from the group whereby there is a greater number of people employed. So there must be emphasis on planning in such a way that the employed people, working class, should also have some respite. Uh, that would mean that these most of the counseling and tutorial sessions are deliberately organized on weekdays by the open and distance learning institutions. But that is not the case with the dual mode institutions. So that is exclusively case with the single mode or the distance learning universities, because they consider that the learner or the learners are quite engaged during the weekdays. So that if the counseling is organized at the weekends, that is on Saturdays and Sundays, that gives lot of relief to the learners. So that is kept in mind. So with that, we come to an end of the institutional arrangements. Primarily, institutional arrangements is focused on 2 points. That is the methodology of organizing the learning, the counseling and tutoring by the conventional universities. Those are the dual mode universities and the single mode universities. We know that dual mode universities are those universities which are having the conventional courses, that means regular programs, and they are also offering the open and distance learning courses programs. So the basic difference between the approach of these two institutions, while in open and distance learning institutions or the single mode academic institutions or universities, the entire focus is on the learners. So if the learners are focused, concentrated at one particular place, then the counseling sessions, if it is arranged in face mode, so those are arranged at the nearby and scattered throughout the study centers or the learning support centers of the university throughout the country. But if you look at the single dual mode universities functioning, then since they don't have the regional network, their mm, counseling and the tutoring services, which is held through the PCPs, personal contact program, is held either at the headquarters or at the selected centers, maybe 3 to 4, 5 centers, not more than that. So that means it is again system centric rather than being only learner preference of the choice. So that is a basic difference, and the single mode industries or the open industries also keep it in mind that these face-to-face sessions or the radio counseling or television sessions or teleconferencing, phone-in counseling, all these are arranged in such a manner that learners do find it quite convenient. Most of the counseling sessions, which are in face-to-face mode, are held on Saturdays and Sundays. But of course, as we are holding this particular session, it is being held on all the days. So that is keeping in view with the contingencies of the program that we must hold the sessions at the earliest possible time so as you prepare for attempting the assignments and also preparing for the current examinations. But then again, I think we have to appreciate that these are being held on the online mode. And you need not to move from your place. You can attend the sessions by just staying at your own place, and you have the advantage to listen to it. And maybe if there is a simultaneous attention to be given, perhaps partly that can also be done. So that means it is in brief. We may sum it up. Then we can say that the counseling and tutoring services uh, that are organized by the open and distance learning institutions, that means open universities, are exclusively learner centric, planned according to the preferences of the learners. While these activities are also considering the circumstances of the learners, but because their system is such in dual mode universities that either those are held remotely at the headquarters or at the field, but for a very specific period of time, which is a compact schedule. Those are called PCPs or the contact sessions, or maybe a similar other name by which those are called. And then they don't have the advantage of providing the phone-in counseling services or the teleconferencing participations or interactive television counseling or radio counseling, which are exclusively available through the uh, open and distance learning institutions, namely IGNO and maybe a couple of others. So with that, we wind up this particular block 3 of EMED 314, which was there for tutoring and counseling, and also for discussing the role of media and technology and the organization of the counseling and tutoring services in the open distance learning system. Dear learners, we will now take up the block 4 of uh, MED 413, which is the assessment of learner performance. So I think the word assessment is already there. Assessment is a evaluation of one's accomplishments or achievements in an endeavor of the academic persuasion. So whatever academic persuasion is there, I mean whatever academic assignment you pursue, then at the end of it, the duration that is there for the academic persuasion, the learner is assessed. Assessed means evaluated on the basis of certain activities which we will discuss uh, during our discussion on this particular block. So if we look at the block number one, then block number one discusses the block number one of course 413 discusses the learner's support, which is the introductory. Then we discuss the learner support and the development of skills, where we discussed about the cognitive skill, study skill, and then reading and writing skills, problem solving skill that we completed some part yesterday. Then we discussed counseling and tutoring services, which counseling, tutoring, media, and methodology of organizing the counseling skills. In the block 4 of MED 413, it is the assessment of learners' performance. So we will discuss learners' assessment in distance education and the tutor comments. Very important. I would say one of the most important topic is the tutor comments. So we will first briefly discuss the learners' assessment, why there is a need for learners' assessment, but then we will make more deeper discussion or study of the uh, tutor's comments. This is very important because this is all that takes place into the correspondence between the learner and the tutor through the assignments. The assignments are submitted, and after the submission, the learner receives the comments from the tutor, and those comments are supposed to make a very big impact on the learners, rather I should say on the progress that is to be made by the learners during the pursuance of their program. So, if we come to the assessment of distance learners in distance education, we find that there is a different type of assessment is taking place in the distance learning system or distance learning education. I have in all through the discussion from beginning to this day, I've been emphasizing on the word formative evaluation or the formative assessment. I've explained formative assessment is an assessment which takes place while something is being formed. So that means while you are actually becoming a learner of a particular program and trying to grasp the program, trying to understand the program. So if at that point of time you are assessed, then it is formative assessment, formative evaluation. Formative means it is under formation. Say, for example, if we are making a pot, while we are making a pot, we try to look at it from different angles. If it is not properly done, then we say, no, you have to make a little padding from this side, then a little thumping from that side. And ultimately, we come to a conclusion that yes, now it is in perfect shape. So finally, we see from that angle. But if while we are in the making of it, we make several interventions. So it is similar to that. While this learner is studying for a particular course in particular program, and if she exhibits some performance, and if that performance is evaluated, and as a result of that evaluation, certain observations are made, those are known as formative evaluations. Then we have summative evaluation. I have already told you that it is the summative evaluation is basically the sum evaluation of the learners while learner is pursuing a program. So usually the summative evaluation is the while the formative assessment is also known as continuous assessment. Similarly, the summative evaluation, which is held at the end of the course when one is waiting for the grades or attainment of the degree and fulfill all the objectives of the programs, then the summative evaluation is held, which is also called the terminal examination. Means the final examinations in general uh, nature, we also say when the final examinations are being held. So that would construe that when the terminal examinations are being held. So this is terminal evaluation. One is continuous evaluations. Formative evaluation is continuous evaluation, and then there's another evaluation which is the summative evaluation, which is at the term end or known also as terminal examination or terminal examination. So we also know that there is another type of evaluation. What is that evaluation? If you go through your study material, at several places you will find you have self assessment question, SAQs. So why these SAQs are given to you? These SAQs are given to you to make your assessment during the pursuit of the course as to whether you are able to understand or whether you are able to clearly move forward, and whether your study is as per the expectations of a learner, and whether you have not understood it properly. So you will immediately know if you attempt self-assessment question and without going to the model answers, Then you can see that is check your progress. There is SAQs and CYP, check your performance. If you go to check your progress and match the answers that you have given written in the self-assessment questions, you can find out the conclusion. If all your answers are correct, definitely you have studied well. But if there are gaps between the answers, in the check your progress says different answers and you have written different answers, that means you have not understood the contents properly. So there is a continuous assessment, there is self-assessment, there is continuous assessment, and there is termed assessment, that is termed examination. More recently, we have several other peer alternative assessment methods, but those are not very significant. Those are just like in classroom, portfolio assessment, peer group assessment, etc. So, like teacher gives certain questions and then he asks one of the student to form a group, and then that small group evaluates all the answers of the class, all the students. Similarly, we have different types of assessment in some like research degree programs. We also ask for presentation of seminars. Then there is assessment also. So then there is internship. All these are there for the assessment. This is a very important component, and in fact, if we will note that in certain cases of IGNOU, the numerical uh, marks are not provided. In certain cases, there are marks. In certain cases, there are grades. In certain cases, there are point grades, and so forth. In certain cases, there is numerical marking. So either there is a letter grade, or there is point grade, or there is numerical marking. And also, there are then explanation to it. If it is excellent, very good, good, satisfactory, and unsatisfactory. So you will look at the comparative chart which is provided in the study material, and it is on the page 13 of block 4 of MED 413. Then this table says it is a grading pattern of it is not common with all other open university. They have their own system. But if you look at the university, then you will find a different scheme for evaluation of the uh, your performance and the reflection of the the score that you have received, whether it is in numerical form or it is in letter grade or it is in the point grade. Because on the reciprocal basis, it has to be interpreted by the different universities, by the different institutions. While a learner is migrating from one institution to another institution, at that point of time, there has to be a universally accepted or acceptable grading pattern. So IGNOU has adopted this particular grading pattern in some programs. There is a letter grade which is A, B, C, D, E. So A grade is excellent and it carries 5 points. So the IGNOU uses 5 point scale. So out of 5 points, the letter grade A is provided when one accumulates 100% performance, which is 4.5 and above. So it may not be 100%, but it is above 4.5. Then one is provided 5 grade points, and also it is interpreted as excellent performance, and also it is issued letter grade A. So in that case, the marks can vary from 95 to 900. Similarly, if it is letter grade B, it means very good. The points are 4 and 3.4 to 4.5. Similarly, the numerical grade is assigned. So likewise, there is a C grade, D which is good, B satisfactory, and E unsatisfactory. So if there is a E grade, then the point grade is 1. Similarly for satisfactory 2, satisfactory means pass. That we have to. In certain courses, the aggregate grade has to be slightly different, so that applies on the respective courses. But in general, the D is supposed to be pass grade, but it is satisfactory pointing grade, and the letter grade is D. So all this scheme is there. It is for the purpose, as I have just now mentioned it, because on the reciprocity basis, one learner moves from one institution to another one, then the respective institutions might be using maybe letter grade, maybe point scale, maybe numerical scale. So it has to be like that. So IGNOU has adopted this kind of methodology. So some institutions have their own uh, way or their own mechanism to assess and grade the learners' performance. So now there's small issue with the validity of the learner. So of course the NAC makes an inspection and looks into the various evaluative methodologies that the institution adopts. On the basis of those, it declares the evaluative system validated or efficient. Very important discussion which I thought to have a serious dialogue with you, that is the tutor comments. Dear learners, this very important discussion is actually relating to the formative assignments or the two-way communication that we are talking about an institution makes with its learners. We have been all the time, talking about counseling, talking about the instructional design. We have been discussing the tutoring. We have discussing the institutional mechanism, organization of counseling and tutoring services. And then we are also talking about the very specific contribution that is made into open distance learning by the open and distance universities, what specific they are doing. So we have been emphasizing on it that the open and distance learning institutions or the open institutes are working differently than the uh, dual mode universities, or those are the universities which are having conventional courses and also the distance learning programs. But those universities which are exclusively dedicated for the distance education, they have one very particular uh, methodology or advantage, I should say, or rather mechanism, which is called the tutor comments, which is the key factor to facilitate the interaction between the learner and the teacher. We have been studying right from the beginning the foundations of distance education. There's a model which was guided didactic learning. So, what is this guided didactic learning? So, primarily, it is basically an academic instruction, instructional mode of learning, so which is guided on, and you receive the guidance, and then the learner prepares or studies accordingly. So, this particular tutor comments aspect is related to that. What is who is a tutor? First of all, I think we discussed it slightly in the previous blog, also blog 3, also who is a tutor. We found out that a tutor, so maybe a counselor may also be a tutor, but if we look at the tutor's typical role, particularly in the face-to-face education, where classroom education is provided, then we can see that a tutor is a person who is responsible for knowledge transfer, and he facilitates the students, you know, to learn through various learning teaching activities like lecturing, demonstration, explanation, arguments, and various other methodologies that one applies for imparting the knowledge to the learners. So, if we look at the situation where learner is physically present, then the teacher, as a tutor, has a very important role. But when we look at the role of the tutor in distance education, I think it is no less important in distance education also. The same role that the teacher will perform in the conventional classroom, similar role has to be played by the tutor in the distance education sessions, which might not be in a face-to-face manner. They might be in online fashion, or maybe mediated by radio or television, or maybe held through other medium. So what I'm trying to say is that a tutor must focus his or her attention to creation of knowledge, and also to imparting the knowledge through various simulatory activities whereby he or she will guide the students to take discussions, to come forward. So he uses the power of word of mouth, and also the gestures and postures of hand and neck and face. So that means while in the classroom situation, he uses the his vocabulary, his vocations, his oral power to the best use. In open and distance learning system, the tutor will similarly create simulations, create an environment whereby the learners are prompted to learn, and he uses all his knowledge, all his experience to create an ambience of a virtual classroom, and thereby involves the learner to learn more, and maybe initiating the discussions, might be delivering a short talk, and then allowing the students to raise questions on those talks. So he does the same thing. He guides, he inspires, he motivates, and so forth. So we can say that the role of the tutor in the open and distance learning system is no less important than the conventional mode. So what we are trying to learn here from the tutor's role that we are discussing, why we are discussing, because now we will come to the point that because the tutor will write something on the attempt that is made by the learners. So if the attempt made by the learners, when it goes to the tutors, and if tutor is not able to write it properly, is not able to prompt the learners to learn, not able to guide the learners, not able to prompt the learners to innovate, to make innovations, then perhaps the role of the tutor is not being performed satisfactorily or as expected. So, so sometimes we find that there are certain instances where the tutors have not been found suitable for tutoring or to act as tutors in the distance learning. Those circumstances, maybe somebody is very good teacher in the classroom situation, but if he or she is not open to the idea of distance education and open to the characteristics of distance learners, then I'm afraid he or she might not be a good tutor, a good counselor. So that means the teacher who takes the assignment of a distance education tutor or counselor has to accept the philosophy of distance education, and they understand the characteristics of distance learners, and only then he or she can act as a good tutor or good counselor. So let me say that it is very important that the counselor or the tutor who accept the assignments of distance learning must be well oriented into the philosophy of open and distance learning system, very well aware of the characteristics of distance learners and the constraints in which the distance learner learns. Secondly, uh, the point which we are going to discuss is writing the comments. If one is not able to, perceive the distance learners in the real perspective, I think one is not going to not only not going to make proper contribution as a tutor, but perhaps he or she will not be able to write good or purposeful comments on the assignments or on the attempt that the learner of distance education will make eventually. So the writing of counselor or the tutor should be such that it performs the same function as performed by the tutor or the counselor in face-to-face class or the conventional mode. So what I'm trying to say that if a teacher is not able to write proper comments, definitely he or she is not a good tutor or counselor. So it is very much required from a tutor or a counselor in the distance learning that she is able to write purposeful comments on the assignments. So these are the prerequisites. Uh, I think we have to remind ourselves that why there are tutor comments. What is the need of tutor comments? Arti, Ria, are you listening?
Yes, sir.
Okay, can you explain what is the need of the tutor comments?
So your voice is breaking. Can you repeat?
Okay, why there is need of tutor comments?
Tutor comments?
Yes, why there is a need for writing tutor comments?
so that they will give the actual analysis to the students. उन लोगों को पता चल पाएगा तो whether where they have to improve and उन लोगों की कितनी understanding है concept की, ये सारी चीजें learners will be getting to know.
Okay, Ria, do you want to add something?
This will help the students to be aware of where they are having weaknesses in, and it will help them.
Okay, so both of you have given the answer, which is half of the answer. Don't mind it. This is half of the answer, what is required, because they have to write the comments so that the learners are made aware of their performance, and if there is an deficiency in their understanding, that is pointed out so that they can improve. Let me just tell you, we have been talking about the role of the tutor in the or the teacher in the classroom, right? We have been saying
Yes,
that
sir.
he is a guide, he is a person who encourages, he is a facilitator, he is an innovator. So what he does, he guides, he makes innovations, he prompts the learners to learn, prompts the interaction, prompts them to ask questions, put queries, raise questions, and he creates an ideal teaching learning environment in the classroom. But because the learner is not available face to face with the tutor, so it is very important that he writes in such a way, the tutor comments, that his writing works as if the learners are physically present and he is able to encourage them, motivate them, guide them, and also provoke a sense of innovations amongst the learners. Do you agree with this answer?
Yes, sir. Yes.
So
Yes,
that,
sir.
yeah, so that is the reason I have been emphasizing why there has to be certain traits with the tutor or the counselor as regard to the role of the teacher in the classroom situation. So, because in the classroom situation, there is automatically face to face contact, and the teacher can see which learner is not able to learn. The student may raise the hand and ask the question, and the teacher will make every effort to, every effort through his gestures, postures, oral capability, knowledge base, and everything. But when we go to the distance learner, this is the basic approach that a tutor or learner should have, that he should feel, he should realize that the student is not physically present. Thereby, I should have an approach which can act as if I am physically present before the learner. Right? That is what I want to say. So there are couple of types of the comments or the communication. Normally, we make academic communication. We also make on some matters administrative communication. In some matters, we make personal communication, and sometimes, because if the learner is not able to properly progress, we also make the supplemental communication. So, in the academic communication, what we do? We go through the academic performance of the learner and then write academic communication. That means the communication which helps the learner to progress in the teaching learning matters. And we also provide grades, we also provide marks to the learner upon his or her achievement, attempt, which may be assignments or the terminal paper. We also try to identify certain academic matters in which the learner is or having difficulty, and expecting some response from the teacher to understand certain issues, certain matters. But if you look at the personal, there are number of circumstances, number of stages or situations when a learner is not in a condition to learn, because the learner is not able to understand the contents. But then there are certain other personal constraints which are also forcing the learner to either skip the learning or not to perform as expected. I gave you an example. We in distance education we receive lot of letters where the learners explain their personal problems, issues, which are hampering the progress or not allowing the learner to continue the studies or to perform as expected. So there also, the tutor or the counselor has to be an empathetic listener and person who should, to his or her own best ability, try to bring out the learner from the negativity or the circumstances which might not be allowing the learner to mentally evolve or to come out of a particular situation. So there the tutor or the counselor acts as a psychologist, and he she must act in a way as to motivate the learner. So then they might have to write sometimes personal. But personal doesn't mean personal in the sense that they should enter into the personal matters, but they should take this situation in terms of learning environment, whether this particular situation is hampering the learning environment of the learner, and if need be, then he or she can suggest certain measures that yes, you can do this thing, that thing, thereby you can come out of your uh, environment which is not allowing you to progress in the learning. More importantly, there are supplemental communication. This is important. Usually, we don't come across this particular term, supplemental communication. This is basically communication which is made to the learner with regard to adopt certain methodology in learning process which are not there covered in the academic or in the personal communication. That means there are certain doubts of the learners which may not be having very solid grounds. Those may be due to the lack of understanding of certain matters, lack of not certain lack of abilities to handle certain situations. In those situations, how the learning can be facilitated if the methodology is explained by the learner, by the teacher to the learner, and make an objective assessment of the learner's performance, which relates to his or her performance in terms of achievement of grades or the letter grades of the numerical awards, then that will be supplemental. Then there the teacher can say, okay, you study this particular course, this particular study material, and if you add something into it, maybe next time you can do better. So this is supplemental. That means it is supplementing the knowledge base of the learner with additional knowledge so as to obtain better grades, better marks. So supplemental communication is very important because we know that the learners at many situations are not able to go beyond their study material, and this study material sometimes they are not able to fully understand it. So in those circumstances, the uh, role of the counselor is to suggest more reference material, more resources, and more strategies as to how to learn better and go for better grades and so forth. So now we will come to the core point, which is the type of communication. I don't know because I hope most of you are pursuing the distance learning program for the first time. If you have done it already and if you receive ever the uh, tutor comments, then perhaps you will have some experience. But I assume you are doing it for the first time, so maybe you so far not have experienced the comments. There are several types of comments that are made by the
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I did two of the courses from Rignu and I got it on my assignment not many times.
okay. So sometimes the teachers write comments. They will write, "What is this? Just this. What is this?" And
Sometimes
some,
it's so it seems to be like negative. It seems like I have done not very
yeah,
work, and or
sometimes
why I'm getting negative comments.
sometimes they will not write anything. So put a cross line across the full page. Put a line across the full
Yes,
page.
red
Red line.
linings, and yeah,
Okay. Sometimes they will use the word "you are totally confused."
I haven't
So,
got this comment.
all this happen, and keeping all this in in mind, I mean, we have come across so many such comments, just say, this is just repetition. Why are you writing this thing? You seem to have not understood it. It is a complete vague. It's a nonsense. I mean, any type of comment that is there to discourage is found. So, there are several samples of such comments which have been accumulated, and I mean, let us consider the impact of such comments. If one say irrelevant, now you see, if one has written, say, for example, 3 pages of an answer of a particular question, and do you think that all the 3 pages will not have a single line which is relevant? So that cannot be assumed. So definitely it is agreeable that one paragraph might not be relating to the answer, proper to the question, but definitely some part of it must be relevant. So it is not advisable to write such a comment. Somebody says it is nonsense. So what is it nonsense? This is a very harsh word. So you cannot write. If you put across a red line, that doesn't say anything whether the language is not good or the content is not good or it is not relating to the question or basically what we want to communicate. What do we want to communicate? We want to communicate to the learner कि भाई your progress is not satisfactory, please do this thing, please do that thing, or do this thing, do that thing. So we have to write, and nobody writes in the margin. Very unfortunately, no one writes the comments in the margin. So we have already made a provision of margin. So we should write the comments in the margin so that there is no jumbling in the main body of the attempt. So that is not followed. Then if you simply write, it is vague. It is not clear. What is not clear? Agreeable. Grammar may not be perfect. Structure may not be perfect. Syntax might be faulty. But if information is correct, then we have to write. कृपया अपनी भाषा को सुधारें. आपके उत्तर सही हैं, लेकिन इन्हें आप शुद्ध भाषा में लिखें. Your answers are correct, but please present them in a grammatically correct language. If that is written, I think it will be a sea difference between the reception of the learner. He or she will learn, yes, I have the answers, but I need to improve my language or my expression. So all this has to be done. So this is not done, and sometimes some says you have there is no spirit in the answers. You have to rewrite them. Somebody say you have to rewrite them. What do you mean by rewriting them? You have to categorically explain that this part is not correct. Answer is incomplete. Please complete the answer. Or if you want more ideas to be attached to the central idea, core idea, then one has to write that yes, please consult these reference books and bring about more ideas, more information, and then submit. So simply writing re, it is nonsense, it is vague, it is hopeless. Putting a cross line, red line across the page and writing. So thereby, the behaviorist and psychologist made a deep study of these comments and the impact on the distance learning and the distance learners. So they came to the conclusion that there are comments which can be categorized into 4 or 5 categories. So there are harmful comments, there are hollow comments. Hollow is, what is this? This is comment. This is hollow. You have totally failed to understand. This is negative. It is nonsense. It is negative. But what is this? It is hollow comment, misleading comments. Add more information. What do you want me to add? You have to write very specifically. If I don't ask the learner to write what I want, then how the learner is going to know? So these types of comments are called misleading comments. That means they don't take the learner into right perspective or the right direction. Similarly, there are number of comments which are null comments. You know what is null comments? Null comments are comments which do not convey anything. Just like sometimes we say, why this is, what have you written, why this is written. So why this is written means not all the attempt, but there might be small portion. So you should clearly mention or mark that portion and then write about it that this doesn't communicate anything. So the learner should, our purpose is what? Our purpose is to tell the learner that you please receive me with proper information. As a teacher, I have this particular assessment of your attempt. If that attempt is not communicated, definitely learner is not going to learn from that. Similarly, we have negative comments also. Uh, those are horrible. Sometimes we write horrible. What is horrible? What has the learner done to the tutor? I mean, she is not presenting himself herself in horrible manner. So we cannot write horrible. So there are several types of comments, but then there are other types of comments. So we have the uh, harmful comments, null comments, the negative comments, then we have misleading comments, and so forth. So, but at the same time, we have positive comments. Positive comments. What do we mean by positive comments? Those which gives positive feedback to the learner. She might not be doing excellent, but then we have to write, yes, the attempt is good, but it can be improved by focusing on these issues. So that is there. So similarly, we have constructive comments. So constructive comments are those types of comments which evolve the learners to think. We can say, yes, it is good to study the Western classics, but it would rather be more interesting to study Indian classics and then write their comparison. So if we have a constructivistic approach, that means the theory of constructivism, we can bring about changes in the learner's behavior. And if we write the constructive comments, then I think the uh, tutor helps not to undermine the learner, but to bring the learner from his or her own circumstances and study more and study creatively, constructively, to make his or her answers more acceptable, more broad, more comprehensive. Now, told you there are two types of comments. One is marginal comments, one is the global comments. So this is a different category. Marginal comments are those comments which are made on the margins. But sometimes we also make the global comments. The global comments is one which is made. Marginal comments are made on the margins of each question. I think you have to understand it very clearly. Whereas global comments are made at the end of the attempt or maybe on the evaluation sheet of the answer book. So there you write couple of lines that yes, the attempt is the learner has not been able to understand the basic concepts. This thing. Even though the attempt is good, but it can be improved further by consulting this and that. You can also write the information or the knowledge base is excellent, but there is need to express it in a more precise and conducive language. So that means those comments which pertains to whole of the attempt is global comment, and the comment which pertains to each question, those are marginal comments. So marginal comments are given in the margins of the question, and the global comments are given at the end of the attempt or in the first sheet where the evaluation or marks are awarded. Similarly, there are personal comments. So personal comments are someone say that there is the attempt shows a high degree of understanding, and one can say that please focus on the appropriate places to add more information. So these are personal comments. So these comments are basically to evaluate or assess the mental abilities of the learner. So sometimes we also say that try to write your answers in proper format and also in a neat and clean style. So maybe some more I have found that many learners have very good understanding, but they don't have that good presentation. So the teacher needs to write. You see, it doesn't mean that if one is not supposed to write harmful comment, null comment, hollow comment, negative comment, one is also supposed to write comments which are constructive, which are helpful to the learner to make him or her aware about the strength and weaknesses. So while it is good to write positive comments highlighting the good points, strengths, it is also required that the teacher writes the weaknesses. Then they should write that the understanding is not up to the mark, need to make more and more reading and so forth like that. So all this is supposed to be the comments. So I think it is very important that as a distance learner, teacher or a tutor or counselor, the teacher or counselor is very well through the nature of the learner, through the expectations of the learner, through the system and its constraints, and then write accordingly. But if he or she is not able to appreciate the distance learning learners' characteristics, situations, and not able to present his or her views, express his or her views in a manner which are functioning in the same manner as they have been functioning in the classroom, then perhaps I'm afraid that he or she might not be an appropriate candidate for distance learning or to be a tutor or counselor for distance learning. So with that, I come to an end, and tomorrow we will take Unit 3 and 4 of Block 4, which is tutoring through correspondence, and then another unit that is so basically we will talk about what happens through the tutor comments. We just discussed the impact, but there is a real education which is performed, which is transacted through the teaching learning comments. So the teaching learning comments is a whole methodology of communicating various important information to the learner. So we have to discuss it tomorrow, and we will also discuss the supplemental interaction. So basically, along with the tutor comments, we also make some supplemental interaction through the tutor comments. So with that, I end this session. If there is any question, maybe one or two questions we can take, or else we will wind up this session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, so we will discuss tomorrow the teaching